All right, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our presentation of a solar and storage system for California State University, Northridge. Next slide, please. So here's our team. We are all senior mechanical engineers from University of Wisconsin-Madison. We'd like to give a quick special thank you to our advisors, our teaching assistant, SAR, our faculty advisor, Dr. Michael Cheadle, and our Solar District Cup mentor, Davis Bain. Next slide, please.
Hello, how are you? So our district is California State University, Northridge, where it's a very large campus outside of Los Angeles. We have been tasked with the goal of renewable power capacity of 20 megawatts of DC. This is specified by the Climate Action Plan at the university with a goal of net zero emissions by 2040. So this helped us with our outline of the project, and we have the campus is split up into 4 different substations, which we use for our battery storage, and our energy storage also is there for outage protection, EV charging, and off-peak energy. Now, Logan is going to talk about the more design concepts that we got into. Next slide, please.
Okay, so our solar installation plans at CSUN consist of 31 total solar installations. 27 of these will be placed on the rooftops of buildings on campus, and 4 of them will be parking lot installations. The buildings marked in blue on the map represent our rooftop installation locations, and the parking lots highlighted in yellow represent where we'll use parking lot solar installations. These installations will bring our total instantaneous power capacity on campus to about 13 megawatts of power. And these installations will also produce about 21 gigawatts of energy over the course of a year. The system totals 35,000 panels and roughly 580 inverters. Next, Christine will talk about more of our layout of the installations in more details. Next slide, please.
Thank you. So getting into how we chose our designs, the panels we selected were REC NPEAK2 panels. They're 375 watts. And we chose these specifically because of their high efficiency at almost 21% and that they don't degrade as fast as other panels. So with a project of this size, hopefully that saves them a lot of maintenance and, extends the longevity of this project. As for the inverters we chose, we selected the SMA Sunny Tri-Power X25 inverters. They're 25 watts. And we chose these for their maximizing performance, but kind of more on a standard budget. And they have a good safety system involved for controlling that power. All of our solar modeling and simulations were performed using Aurora Solar, where we took into account things like the tilt angle of the panels, the row spacing, roof heights, and the angles of the rooftops, which we got from Google Earth kind of estimating, as well as shading from trees and other obstructions. So we wanted to pick areas on the roofs that had the most unobstructed area, as well as the parking lots. So as you can see on the right images, our rooftop schematic, we chose a panel angle of 34 degrees, which matches the latitude of the Northridge campus. And then because of that, we had to select a row spacing that would both maximize efficiency of the panels without shading each other, but then also maximize the amount of panels we could fit on a rooftop. And we selected 30 inches between rows for that. And for the parking lot installations, as you can see, we used a carport design, which the array covers 2 rows of cars parked in a parking lot. And this is tilted at 10 degrees, also facing south, so that we can increase the efficiency, but not have at such a high angle that we need to have the mounting system at super high height to reach the cars. So we decided on 10 degrees as our optimal tilt for that. And this also means that water and rain will drain off the panels and not accumulate. Next slide, please. So here you'll see an example of our installation modeling. using Aurora. On top is the panel and string model where we used Aurora's auto stringing tool to string the panels together and place inverters. And on the bottom, you can see the irradiance model. We looked really closely at all of these to ensure that none of our panels were being shaded by obstructions or other rooftop heights. And as you can see on the scale on the right, we aimed for that highest amount of irradiance over the year that we could achieve. And then based on these models in Aurora, we used their hourly energy generation profile to continue with our financial analysis and battery analysis, which Dewey will talk about now. Thank you. Next slide, please.
Thank you. So for our storage system, we decided to analyze using the the substations we have, including a couple of parking lots, parking lot B2 and B4. Other than we also used University Student Union, Redwood Hall, and a Wyatt Hall. So we analyzed them separately and decided to place batteries in them separately because we had resiliency parameters that CSUN gave that they wanted these buildings to be able to withstand a 2-hour outage during peak times and be able to use 50% of that peak load. Aside from that, we also analyzed and decided to place a battery in Jacaranda Hall separately because we found out that the amount of solar power produced the building cannot withstand the amount of solar power produced. So we decided to place a battery to make sure that it won't suffer an outage. And as you can see, the pink borders labeled as substation 1, and the blue is substation 2. The purple is substation 3, and the peach color is University Student Union and parking lot G3. The light blue is Redwood Hall, green is Jacaranda Hall, and orange is a Wyatt Hall. Next slide, please. For our solar system specifications, we found that the best model, the battery for our model is the Megatron battery energy storage system from Simtech Solar. And from the entire analysis, we found out that from the entire analysis and all the battery units on campus, we found that the battery capacity is about 11,550 kilowatts with a storage capacity of 17,130 kilowatt hours. And we were able to use, and we can use about 4 batteries from the 2,604 kilowatt hour batteries, 6 of the 11,006 kilowatt hour batteries, and 6 of the 373 kilowatt hour batteries. Something important to note about the Megatron BSS model is that it features a really good fire suppression system that uses the Novec 1230 fire suppression fluid, which removes heat and suppresses a fire, while also maintaining oxygen levels for the safety of anyone present in the battery structure. Next slide, please. For our storage system, we found out that there's going to be a lot of storage system savings over 20 years in dollars. And as you can see, there's $167,801 saved in substation 1 and $310,155 saved in substation 2 and $251,902 saved in substation 3, $104,888 saved in substation in Redwood Hall, and $69,210 in Wyatt Hall. And there is a negative savings in University Student Union at $109,240 and Jacaranda Hall at $97,941. The negative savings, which is losses in University Student Union, is honestly a give or take because it's also offsetted by the amount of savings from the rest of the buildings and the substations. So it was a give or take whether we wanted to go with the USU battery, but since we need a battery on site, we decided to keep it as that. And now Ian will go through the distribution system impacts. Next slide, please.
So in terms of the grid impacts on the system, when our current design is properly implemented, there should not be any overvoltage within the system. The biggest issue that we came across is amperage overloads and system infrastructure issues. At Jacondra Hall and Redwood Hall, those two buildings, the batteries that we've added to those buildings will help to allow us to have a higher solar potential while also rerouting that electricity to the rest of the grid, essentially using the batteries to make those points of contact with the grid stronger and more interconnected instead of going through just the building itself, like most of the other buildings are going to be connected by. And in terms of the parking lots, those we think can have we think that those will have no issues in connections, but they will require new underground lines and a pretty good amount of new infrastructure for some of our more far out building plans. It's only the ones that are on the north side of campus that seem to might have some issues, but we're confident that we've scaled our equipment correctly to deal with that, as well as the EV charging load that we're adding to the campus. Next is Logan to talk about the financials.
So for CSUN, the LA Department of Water and Power does not allow for a power purchase agreement. So we decided to look outside of the box, and what we found is a proprietary agreement between a solar developer known as Collective Sun and LA Department of Water and Power called a solar purchase agreement. This is primarily for nonprofits and functions similar to a PPA without an escalator. Using the size of our project, we created an assumption that our target IRR is 7.5%, and we scaled our SPA price to reach that. Next slide, please. So looking at some of the results of our financial analysis, we used a weighted average construction cost to determine that we're going to have an aggregate system cost of $22 million. And we found our SPA price to be 1.26 cents per kilowatt hour AC, sorry, 12.6. And instead of using an ITC, we decided to go with a PTC. We determined this through comparing the results with the particularly high production in this region. We found more savings. We actually used the 2025 Inflation Reduction Act price, which gives us a little bit more financial benefits. Now, Aaron will talk about the customer savings.
Next slide, please. So with our customer savings analysis, we decided to utilize SAM, specifically the PPA partnership flip without debt. While this isn't exact, it is the closest we could get with the SPA. We used inputs from our conceptual, battery, and financial models to do this, such as the inverter module type, battery specs, and tax incentives. And here in this graph, you can see a span of 25 years of the savings, annual savings. And we modeled both when the SPA is available and when it ends. So here at the 10-year mark, we can see that there's still growth in savings for both SPA and CSUN for both parties. And now Marcos will talk about the development plan. Next slide, please.
Hey, just a quick warning to the team. We did hit that 2-minute left mark, and we may be less than that at this point. So if we could go through the next slide fairly quickly, that'd be great.
Yeah, I can do that. All right, so just talking about our standard timeline that we're working with. And this would be for example, just like one parking lot or one location. We're expecting about 2 months for permitting, construction, maybe 1 to 3 months. That's depending on the size or whether it's a carport mount or a rooftop mount. Like it really just depends on what it is. And then we're also expecting about 3 months for that interconnection. But generally, our stakeholders, just in terms of the theoretical project, is NREL and CSUN. NREL being where we get most of our like kind of constraints and kind of what we need to actually like provide in terms of like this presentation or the project itself or kind of whatever it is. CSUN is our secondary stakeholder in this case, just because it gives us our geometry, we're working to their specifications, their parking lots, their rooftops, kind of all of them. The zoning ordinances we're dealing with are Title 24 and Senate Bill 226. Title 24 just being the general, just kind of like building codes. It's kind of like when a review board is going to get in, that's what they're going to be looking at. They're going to be looking for, are we dealing with Title 24 correctly or are we not? In terms of Senate Bill 226, that's essentially related to the California Environmental Quality Act. And that's essentially saying that if you are putting a solar array on a new rooftop or a parking lot, you are not subject to external review. And so by doing this and by kind of like dealing with this, we're really focusing on kind of like skipping through the permitting process and not having to deal with that. In terms, just like a quick word on that permitting process, we're expecting kind of like an initial review, which is going to be done by an outside party, and then separately an internal review done roughly about the same time, probably by a CSUN or just kind of like a state engineer. Then we're going to go into that.
Madison, that is the end of your time. I'm sorry, it went really quickly.